Hello. Hello, hello. That's gonna make me sleepy. That was
But we are
good.
already live. You don't need to put in the music now.
No, I just want some lo-fi background music. I know we're live. Because today is a special episode. I got a
Oh,
special notification on YouTube. Apparently, I uploaded my first video ever on the channel on September 9th, 2 years ago, 2022. Which technically makes it the channel's second birthday 2 days ago on Monday. And you and I happened to have our first joint stream together on engineering culture, specifically the first two pairs of episodes about trunk-based development and how you handle code reviews and pull requests, which basically solidified our core pillars of our topics. That was 1 year ago. So technically, our tech journey brand is 1 year old, and this channel is 2 year old. I don't know how it just all fell into like September 9th, September 10th, which is, I think, a coincidence. But I figured since we're having a chill stream and you turned up last minute, it would be a great opportunity to sort of just reconnect with our audience. Maybe just have the two of us a panel discussion about the channel itself, about what's going on. Since you and I have to have the discussion anyway, I figured we might as well waffle on a bit live. So Adrian,
okay. But as a heads up, I only have time until 5. So
that's fine. That's fine.
But starting from next week, we can work on a schedule again. That's possible.
Because we've missed you. We very, very missed you. You've been hustling. You have some kind of important project.
Well,
can you talk about anything?
Yeah. Actually, several things. It is not only one thing. I don't think that one single project would stress me that much. But yeah. So primarily, we are actually done with the long process of building what we call CloudBar. That is, the solution to many problems, I think. And this is the reason why it took longer than it actually was intended to take. But it was a great feeling to see that ship basically hitting water for the first time. And seeing all this feedback coming back, mainly positive feedback. Actually, not much of negative feedback anyway, but I personally like negative feedback because negative feedback is very honest. And but there wasn't much, so it was actually a quite good result. And overall, I figure out new business models as well for our SaaS. And I think that actually gave me some, let's say, opportunities I needed to take and rethink things and put some more work into exactly this to make sure that happens or basically can be used correctly in the future. And this is part of software development as well. It's not only the part of, and that came clear to me as well, or became clear, is that software development is not only about writing code and defining what practices you use or something like that. In the end, it matters a lot what happens with your software on the market. Does it really solve problems? How do people accept those things? And those kind of things are actually extremely important for you yourself as a company, for your people you're working with, and of course for the people you're working for. And when those things are really, let's say, working out, and you see when people actually giving you feedback about those things, you see one very interesting thing is that you start to actually course correct where you're going by the feedback you're receiving. And this is what I really, really enjoy, getting feedback and working with that feedback on the future. And I really have the feeling that this goes better and better every year. I'm working on that. And yeah, so far I'm extremely happy with the iterative approach and what the result was. And yeah, that's actually it. I had not much of vacation time, to be honest, in the summer this time. Next year probably, but it was worth it just because of the product we now have. Yeah.
Awesome.
And how was it for you?
Busy, actually. Like we're making some changes in our daily lives. Just family. Like we're trying to figure out So my partner is also a service worker, and she works afternoons, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is why I've been streaming less consistently, less often, and why the book club essentially had to be put on pause, because I can't handle the entire. I basically have like 3 12-hour days in my week, which is 7 hours of work and then 5 hours with the kiddos on my own, because we sort of have our half of the week our shifts misalign with kindergarten. So we're trying to create like solutions for that, so that we can spend more time together, also rest more, but also be well rested for more engaging activity outdoors with the kiddos, especially now. It's going to be autumn and winter. There's going to be a lot of festivities, birthdays, holidays. So we want to try to take advantage of it now that the kiddos are sort of walking, running, sort of excited. Plus, there's that logistics going on in the background. That's mostly, you can't see it, you just can tell from my energy levels. I've also been on vacation, and now that I'm back, I'm sort of making an upgrade on my business. I'm also changing my business model.
No, what is it?
Well, I've hired Jonathan.
Are you doing massage as well for the CEO?
Oh no. The product is the same. I'm just rethinking strategically how I'm approaching new clients. So I've hired Jonathan Stark to work with me to figure out how I can produce. First of all, how I can describe my team coaching product service, because it's the one I, in a way, do the most intensely, do the most also when it's active, but I don't talk about it a lot. It's a little bit more intimate, it's a little bit more private. But what I talk about the most is the one-on-one services that I provide. So I've been sort of thinking about how to merge that together, how to align the business strategy more accurately. And what I've come to realize is that I'm separating out my products so that I work with unemployed or in between jobs. So everything that's career related and solopreneurs, that's going to be one product. So when the business is solo and we are working one-on-one, that's one product. And when I am working with a company, somebody who is inside a company, even if it's one-on-one or with their team involved, that's a separate product. Previously, I stratified my offer based on how intense the touch points were. So how many times we meet, or in what form we meet, or what sort of kind of milestones we set. But I figured out that I am actually serving like 2 or 3 different psychographics and demographics. So that took some time to figure out. But you've probably noticed some inconsistencies in how the newsletters and how my LinkedIn writing are positioning themselves, because I am evolving that. So what we're doing with Jonathan right now, as you can see some progress on this in the following weeks, is I am building a lead magnet, like a 5-day email course that captures sort of the most intense transformation that is simple to do on your own, as a little drip feed to basically build relationships with my potential clients, which is the whole point for these streams. But these streams also capture the completely different audience, which is people who are on our network, people who look up to us as developers who have gone solo, or industry thought leaders, or technologists in general, or parents. So like we have a lot of touch points with a wider audience for the streams. But for my product, I realized that I just need a little bit more solidified way of communicating with my ideal team coaching client, so that I balance out the level of, let's say, communication and just clarity to what's on offer. So that's new. The channel is 1 year old, so it's a good time to sort of set new expectations, set new plans for it. What is new is that I'll be speaking on StripeCon next week. It's a local conference here in Ljubljana. It's organized by my first ever employer.
Is it
right?
about
So
Stripe?
No, it's about Silver Stripe. It's an old PHP framework. So if you've managed to avoid Symfony and WordPress and Drupal, then you've probably come to sort of settle on Silver Stripe. It's a framework from New Zealand that got popularized in the early 2005 to 10 era, just before the crash, before the first economic crisis in 2008. So that's when it became popular as an alternative to agencies, particularly. Basically anybody who wanted to build kind of like a SaaS product that also served as a brand page, but didn't want to make it WordPress. So they wanted to still have engineers employed who can add features to it that are a little bit more rich and complex than what WordPress or other ecosystems had to offer. Notably, Drupal was very opinionated. WordPress is overly simplistic on the low-code side. And there weren't really any alternatives that were sort of working out of the box. Symfony, Laravel, etc. didn't really have any kind of front office to speak of at that time. They do now, but that's because the ecosystem has matured. So Silver Stripe is just that one framework you never heard of. Context is that when the conference is in Ljubljana, it's organized by Innovative, and Innovative is my first employer. So I started my career when I was 18 years old at Innovative, like 15 years ago. They're also having, I think, a 20-year anniversary, 25-year anniversary this year, which is also happening later. But when they're organizing this conference, it's here on the castle in Ljubljana, and they've invited me in to talk about the more engineering strategy side, to sort of complement the more technical discussions. So I'm super looking forward to it. It's my first speaking engagement after COVID, so I'm really excited to sort of network in person again, so it's not just always Zoom calls and
if you find someone who's holding the camera, make sure the microphone is plugged in. Just a tip from my side.
Okay.
You don't have
you have
just
a recording.
You
have a recording from a conference with no audio.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then in October, so the first week of October, I'll be in Bucharest on How to Web. So I'm hoping to meet up with Sander Hugendorn. Sander is also going. There's some locals from Ljubljana that I think are going. I did recommend them for speakers, so I think I will meet them there. Yeah, and I'll be having like a 20-minute talk about extreme programming, particularly the part about speaking up, psychological safety, and courage in product engineering teams, in smaller product engineering teams. So that's my agenda there. I'll also be mentoring in their incubator. It's sort of representative of the whole startup scale-up scene in Eastern Europe. So they do have a little like kind of pre-seed incubator sort of funding round going on as a competition, and the winners of that competition will receive some mentoring. So I've also volunteered to mentor on there and on the last day. So that's basically workshops, like ad hoc workshops for the founders, for the CTOs and CEOs, which I'm really excited about. And in 2 weeks exactly, on the 26th, many of you noticed my absence in writing, but don't know exactly why. It's because I'm ghostwriting for the publication called Grow CTO, GRO-CTO, which is the community formed around the Typo AI product. It's a competitor for LinearB. They reached out to me last year about sort of doing something together regarding the newsletter. And I've been aggregating a weekly sort of composition of interesting articles, 3 each, that might be interesting for English-speaking CTOs, VPEs, directors, etc., engineering leaders in general, who are also then the ideal buying persona, the ideal client for the actual software engineering intelligence product. And I'll be co-hosting an interview with Dave Farley. So that's going to be in 2 weeks. So it's going to be on the stream slot at 5 p.m. So 30 minutes from now, that hour, that's when we start. It's going to be a 1-hour conversation with Dave, because Grow CTO is hosting a webinar around DORA metrics. It's not the core topic. The core topic is continuous delivery and engineering intelligence. DORA metrics just happen to be the most sort of marketing worthy tagline to sort of capture, to very shortly and simply capture what the conversation is about. Yeah, so that's what's happening in the next few weeks. That's what I've been preparing for, working for. Right now, I'm super busy about preparing presentations for the 2 talks, because they are in slightly different formats. So my prepared talks don't fit well. That's new. Yeah, and I'm signing up a few more coaching clients starting October. So doing well.
Interesting update.
As for the channel, I've been neglecting the channel a little bit and the newsletter.
Which channel? That one.
This channel, yeah. Because I've been doing sort of impromptu little bite-sized educational sessions, which were fun. But it's not following on that example that you and I set regarding, having 1 week or 2 week in advance announcement, then you can prepare for it, and we talk about it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Lately, I've just been, deciding on a topic that I'm well prepared for, announcing it Wednesday morning, and then hosting it Wednesday afternoon, like I did today. So I categorize that as slight neglect, because I'm used to a different workflow. Yeah. So you said you have more time starting next week to go back to a regular schedule?
Yes. So in general, I want to go back a little bit more into content creation. I have new inputs and things going around in my head. And one of those things is to talk about my experiences, especially in the last year and 6 months, as a CTO in let's say, an entrepreneurial CTO, building a SaaS product. So it's not like this is not the first product we've built, but I think this is the product which changed the things most for us.
So for context, for those who don't know, you went from agency style staff augmentation to doubling down on one of your internal products and making it like a B2B targeted SaaS product.
Exactly.
And you've canceled everything else. So this is now purely...
We are about to. It is a little bit like we are about to, and we are in the process, so canceling is not that easy. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been good partners so far, right?
Because you probably have good relationships and maintenance contracts with old agency clients.
Most clients basically come with us and hop onto the new product. That's actually a great thing.
Ah, okay.
And
that's cool.
Yeah, that's what made me so, let's say, we had so much to do because of that. Because and that makes me happy, because it is always nice to start a new product with the existing clients, to be honest. That's great, because after so many years of working together with sometimes even clients 15 years old, but since 15 years, and that's actually a nice thing to see them still with you and appreciating what you built there. And the idea is, so I mentioned Cloudbar, I will do way more content about this product, not particular about this product itself, because, well, there will be a website. There is actually a website already, but it is more about why have we decided to build it like that. And I think this is an extremely modern approach. It is not an entirely new approach, but the hows we have done that and the why is extremely interesting. So I know from mentorings, from coachings, from CTO groups, from conferences, I know all those struggles companies went through, especially startups and let's say, traditional small companies have those problems. They start on some point, they have a rough idea, they gather some people together and build a product. And the reality is, and that is what I've written down for myself in, so often, and I checked that out. Most of the applications have at least 70, most of the times even let's say 80% in common, which means that those applications out there aren't that different. You always have authentication,
Login,
a user
identity
management, product
user
management, some form
ERP,
of CMS.
CMS, yeah.
Exactly. And what we have actually built is a software which is exactly that. It is basically providing you that basis to build anything you want to build in an extremely modern way, extremely modern stack, extremely modern approach. So everything we talk about, we incorporate in the stream, for example, it is incorporated in the product as well. And that makes it so interesting. And before we actually released it, it was already sold to another company now building software with that as well. That's actually quite interesting. That was fun.
But did you sell a license, or
we have, and that is one of those things which actually was so interesting when I want to talk about that. So we plan to actually have that as a substitute for our legacy software we have. And so the legacy software was built onto many different platforms, so many different times, and we just thought it would be a good replacement, but it turned out to be way more than that. And the interesting part is it is now available as a single, so it's essentially a multi-tenant system. So you can install an instance, and you can instance that for multiple tenants which have their own domains. It's a little bit like, imagine Substack, where you can put in your own domain. It's design and stuff like that. That's a little bit like that.
It's like Shopify, kind of.
Yeah, but way more packaged. So Shopify is, install Shopify and you will be very disappointed because there's simply nothing there. And the point is, here is already, so imagine you are in a company which just have an idea and you want to push to the idea. You basically start at 80% of the project. And that's the interesting part. And there's everything built in already, which you probably need. And what you don't have, you will basically be able to add yourself. This is for the building part. And that's the actual fun thing. That was not intended to be the business model. The business model was the substitution part. So having the single tenant or the multi-tenant version. But now we have a third tier as well. Actually, it's the fourth tier. It is like build yourself. So it's basically take that cloud bar and build it yourself. So basically you are a startup, and instead of investing 200, 300, 400k in your first iteration, you basically go out with way less than this amount of money, and starting already at the point where you have a best practice setup already at 80%.
So
and it's not WordPress.
It's a native web app. There's
exactly
headless back office. It's a Mac
It is actually
service architecture.
I will talk about that. That's a little bit more complicated. It's a service oriented, not a let's not use microservices, because for microservices it is a very specific definition. So what we actually have is a modular monolith, which is where you are able to deploy every module separately and run it separately. So it is a hybrid between both worlds, the best of both worlds you can have of this.
They are not communication and persistence isolated, but you did guarantee deployment isolation, which is one of the characteristics that you want.
Oh, they are. They actually communicate via MQ, so they are in asynchronous communication. So you can let them.
That almost ticks all of the boxes for microservices.
Yes, but microservices are developed independently as well, which isn't the case
so you don't
for
have any team boundaries, so it's one team maintaining all of them. Okay.
So it's basically a modular monolith which is independently deployable. So let's keep it with that. Even though my business partner says it differently, I think so. We have an argument about that. But the interesting part is that you have an extremely scalable, extremely modern thing, which is automatically translated in all areas, which means that I will show that. I'm pretty proud of that one. I never saw such a good translation module. But that took actually 2 months to build. But everything inside that software is automatically translated by DeepL. And you have a contextual translation. You can retranslate everything as a client. You can even click on a word what you want to translate in translate mode, start to translate it, and just say, hey, I have 16 languages and everything is done for you. No matter if you create content with a CMS system or you create a new product and a product description and things inside the product, everything will be translated for you, but you can adjust, if you like, how you are used to it with ChatGPT or DeepL. And those kind of conveniences really helped us to really plan new products for our clients, just because every time we start, we are at least at 80% of what we need already. And that is what I personally like so much, and what was so frustrating for me some month ago, because that was the plan, but it took ages to get to this point, because it's quite complicated to build that just for yourself, but try to build that as something which is reusable in multiple dimensions.
To others as a package service.
Yeah, and that made it so interesting to build, and this is the reason why I want to change a little bit the way how I do content, to talk about exactly this. Of course I want to promote, so let's be honest, I want to promote the product a little bit, but in reality it's my fascination of how efficient you actually can start a new project. Because we have done that for ourselves, so we basically use that. It's a little bit like I compared it to Unreal Engine. So you basically have an engine where you start from and build your stuff, right? So, but below that there is a fixed engine, and this is not just, let's say, you mentioned Shopify. There are so many out there, like Shopify, Medusa, Strapi. So many things which you can use headless already. The problem is you need to use a lot of glue to get those things together. And this is, you don't start at 80%. You start in each context at 80%, but you have everything in between, which can drive a small company mad if you have 5 components and just 2 developers. It's
aimed at engineers who can add customization, or solopreneurs who don't need customization. But it doesn't solve the problem for solopreneurs or entrepreneurs who want customizations but don't want to hire an engineering team.
Exactly. So actually, we managed to build the product we always wanted to have ourselves, and we never had, and which ended up in multiple legacy applications after each other. So every time we built something new, it went actually legacy. And now we have something where we have one mono repository, and we basically build in this one mono repository all apps for all our clients. That is very interesting. And that means that all our developers are just focusing on just one code base, one problem solution space, one development cycle, which is so extremely effective.
Yeah, it's not like every client has their own project, has their own repo, and then each one of them is sort of out of date with something else, and then you have to have this.
Next to it, so we basically went through 2 new pen tests we've gone through with white hat companies, and it was very nice to see that we actually passed all of them. That was nice to see as well. So
did you expect any obvious problems regarding security?
I was a little bit. So we use pass as so. It is actually not necessary to use that for that kind of solution, but I prefer to use pass to just get rid of the problems. And the more pass you use, the more you are in the hands of the pass provider regarding everything from networking to running and hosting your app in security terminology, which means there is a lot of
you just
stuff.
have application layer access and maybe a little bit of routing fallback.
Exactly, and you don't have like, when you use to build applications yourself, you may have some proxy yourself in Nginx or even Nginx WAF or something like that, and you have a lot of things you can do, or use Cloudflare and you can set up everything in Cloudflare. If you use those things but you don't have access because they are set up in the best practice way, you need to pass all those kind of things. But in the end, it was working out very well, and the architectural decisions we made worked out very well, because we had very specific things for large companies we worked for, who really say, okay, it must work like this, otherwise we can't work with you, and we actually passed there, and that was
so that's really probably data governance, logs, DNS, DDoS protection, Right, so
There is a lot of things. Believe me,
and the ISO certifications in
you
Germany.
just get sometimes documents with more than 50 points to solve, which are actually not high, but they expect to do that because they are tagged as best practice. So you have this typical critical high, medium, low best practice, and they expect to have everything implemented. And that's actually correct. You should do that. And that is an interesting part where so many companies I work with and I know don't know about those. And this is when you get into specific areas of, let's say, company sizes, then this becomes a very prominent topic. And you should implement this very early on in your thought process, how you build software, because on some point you can't change things anymore, and that's extremely important. And we had problems with that in the past with our legacy software because we used software which were actually not able to fulfill those requirements. And that was a big pain for us, pain point, because we
you
had
couldn't
those
change the software, or because the software was too
exactly
old.
we couldn't change the core software. We needed to work around it, try to find web application firewalls, and that became so complicated, and we weren't able to solve all problems. So sometimes, for example, a SOAP API, it is very hard to just block specific calls in a SOAP API. You can block an entire SOAP API, but then the application doesn't work anymore. If you just want to block several specific things out of that, many of those application or web application firewalls are not capable of doing that.
I mean, with SOAP especially, if you know, SOAP is a transaction envelope. So you're using the SOAP protocol both for the requests and the handshake to log in to make the requests. And it's very difficult to block only the requests without blocking the ability to handshake, right? So it's this idea that every time you use a REST API, I also have to call login on the same URL, and I can't block the particular call because it has the same address as the login that must never change, right? So it's this, so it's a very particular problem with SOAP, so that you cannot solve on a network layer, and then you need to go deeper on the application layer.
So you want to have it in order to fix those things and be confident for future changes, for future clients and challenges. You want to be able and capable to change everything, and that. I know I was an advocate for the MAC architecture, so for the compose part. I made a video series about those 4 types in my head, like by the
US clients, our US audience will probably not be familiar with it. The MAC alliance is a very sort of European German, alliance. Swiss, UK.
It is about software composing. So in general, it's like you. Instead of building the entire app yourself, you basically get the best of breed, how they call it. Like you get, for example, Shopify, you get Contentful, and you get Auth0, and you start to manage some app because Auth0 handles your users. These are the other parts, the shopping, the e-commerce part, and you have a little bit of content management. And in theory, that's all you need. But that's theory, because in reality, you need to build a lot in between to make that running, to keep. So if you just use them just for one language and stuff like that, it's okay. But as soon as you have multiple tenants with multiple languages, every of those components need to have the same capabilities of working with that, and that makes it so complicated.
I don't want to go into more detail. I mean, it's a very complex. You said there was a change in your business model. You went from agency to SaaS, and you had to change your business model. So I'm assuming your business model earlier was salaries, so arbitrage on staff augmentation. You were leasing out your engineering team to build that custom parts that your clients needed. And now I'm assuming the commonality is so good that you're actually making more money on the licenses for just the common parts, and then you teach them how to build the small changes themselves.
Exactly. So we have still both. So we build for them, and they build with what we build. So,
but it's more just traditional service oriented, build for you, build with you, or I show you how
Yeah,
to build.
we try to avoid every form of agency work.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is we see ourselves as partners. So we are involved in several projects as partners, where we are actually the technical partners of a business. It could be even called a joint venture. That is what we appreciate to do with others. And we have the other thing is that we actually sell the software we have built to others that they can build with that. So it's basically that. That is a very, very young idea. So it's not like there is some product which you can buy right now. We have done that already, but that was very manual process. So we said we be ready by end of year to have a sellable version of CloudBar for other companies, startups, developers.
Like a white label.
A white label version of it.
Yeah.
Fully fledged version of it, but probably in NPM packages.
You mean self-hosted, so that they can white label and self-host?
They can basically do everything what they want as soon as they pay the fees for that.
Okay.
And that's actually the idea behind that. And that's so make it as easy and hurdleless as possible. And that's it. So get away from the agency business model, because I pretty much don't see any future there. That's very stressful situation.
Yeah. I mean, it's arbitrage, right? You're basically serving US and UK clients and leasing out engineers who have to match Pakistan, Eastern Europe, Africa, right? So it's this just constant arbitrage of, matching high margins on the gradient of how cost of living is changing across the world. And it's a very ruthless model, because you're not incentivized to build better quality, you're not incentivized to keep your developers, you're not incentivized to keep your clients. But for the cash flow of the business, you want to make outrageous promises, like I will hire 5 people and then you and I work together for 2 years, and then something doesn't go according to plan, and then it just becomes this like weird unknown ownership problem, because you don't know, am I owning the team? Are you the owner of the team? Am I, like, if you don't have work for them, I have to, like, if you own them, am I gonna find a second project for them? But then they might not be available for you, and then it just becomes this like constant babysitting problem that are typical for agencies. Of you don't have enough clients, then you have too many, then one special client is pissed off that you're not full-time committed, and then you have to sort of count hours and sort of decide, and then everybody ends up overworking, and then they leave, and then you don't have the team that you promised you would, and then just and then you tell them to hire their own people, and they say they don't know how to do that. That's why they hired you. It's like,
it never really works out. So there are of course multiple versions of what let's say what agency work can be. So you can be this full stack approach where you take the application for the client, you build it entirely in their name and blah blah blah. But none of those are actually good, because what all of those lack are actually some form of development cycle which is financed, which means that no one is really trying to improve anything, because it is treated as, hey, it's done, now it's running, and suddenly it becomes totally uninteresting for the developers, and no one wants to pay for that anymore. But everyone does have the expectation it needs to be run or it needs to be maintained, but
operated. It needs to be operated. It's not.
But it is not perfect. It was just a thing you have developed. So you need to improve. You need to fix bugs. You need to work on improving that, refactoring things.
A lot of customers that fit into the psychographic of good clients for agencies mistakenly think that what they're buying is automation, but really what they're getting is a customized platform that then has to be continuously operated. And most agencies rely on this in this idea that, yes, we build the software for you and you pay a premium for that, but then you also need a human operator to sort of make sure the lights are on.
Yeah.
And we can provide that for you at an ongoing rate of maintenance. And then the more clients you have, the more developers you basically keep on staff, and then it gives this illusion of growth. But but generally what you're doing is you're just horizontally scaling a low margin product, and then the more you have, you need managers, but they're not really managing engineering, they're just project managers. Who then also have to become salespeople when there's too little work, and
it never turns.
There's one model. The other model I've seen work well is staff augmentation. So you just have like 3-4 people that work very well together, and you just keep selling them out to like fixed scope projects, like 3 months here, 6 months there. That seems to be very popular in Germany, Ukraine, Czech Republic, Poland.
Yeah, well, I know many of them, especially when I'm conferences. They bombard me with those. Hey, do you have something?
They're very active sales departments
Yes,
because
but
they churn a lot. They have
Exactly.
very active sales departments because they churn. They very rarely keep a client across 2 cycles.
Yeah, and the problem I think is they are very unhappy, especially developers working there are very unhappy. And there are very, let's say, I hear that a lot from developers. There are very strange models how they are actually employed. It's a little bit that sometimes they don't receive a salary, and sometimes they only receive a salary in hindsight.
Daily rate. Yeah.
It is very strange. So I don't like those processes. So this is not what we actually have done with agency, but I know a lot of companies, and I simply, so in short, I don't like that. And I really want to focus everything on productization, on SaaS products, and on focusing everything around this code base we build, so that everything, because it's mainly driven by tech what we're doing, so it must be the code base which everything circles around, and there must be business models for this. And we have several for that. So we actually have a 4-tier system, and this 4-tier system is very related. So it's not like cousins, it's more like siblings. So it's very compatible with each other. It's actually the same thing, sold differently. But this is the, let's say if we make one update, it supports every of those. So this is some kind of rule. And that is one of the findings. So we never planned, it was not intentional. It was just the power of the feedback we got. Because people said, hey, do you actually sell that? Because you were talking about this, you showed us to that, because during sessions we've made together. Yeah, that's actually a nice thing to have, that you see that people are actually interested in what you do. And then you work around and take a look that you can create something out of that which even serves more people, and you can finally build what you ever wanted to build, even though you are a small company. That is the interesting part, because, well, if you have enough money, you can build everything and somehow sustain it. The point is how you do that as a small company long term. I'm doing that for 15 years now. I'm proud of that. But I want to do it for 15 more, right? And for that, you need to adapt to this ever-changing market out there. And that is not that easy. Yeah.
Most tech companies are built on this idea of growth, that you're sort of buying time by servicing, by outsourcing, going with the Mac architecture, by basically avoiding any kind of regulatory or hardware or infrastructure detail by using very expensive services. And then you solve this expense problem by growing over time. So producing very good cash flow early on so that you fill up your coffers, and then you basically invest into growth, which means expanding your engineering department. And then you bring everything on site gradually over time, or you hyper specialize into a platform that gives you then a discount. But all of that is tied to hyper growth, right? So you want to scale to 100, 200, 500 engineers just to then benefit from the economy at scale. So that basically you bring the overall cost per unit of efficiency down, because at a certain level of scale you can then play.
But this scale-up mentality, this is not.
And it's
very
unsustainable
common
for small businesses, because small businesses usually grow to 100, and then they say, you know what, this is kind of cool. We want to stay here, otherwise we lose all of our agility. We become too corporate, there's too much red tape.
And there's always this sweet spot for companies, where they feel comfortable with what they do. And, you need to define success for yourself. That's a big learning for myself. Success is when you yourself are happy with what you do, and you love what you do, and you can live and work well with that. That is success. And if you try to become simply rich and title that as a success, but you struggle for the next 10 years to somehow get there and burn out in the end and lose everything, that is not success, right? Even though you might end up having some money on the side, but still you simply aren't happy with that anymore, that can happen quite easily. So you need to define for yourself what is happiness for yourself, and make it a realistic goal. It doesn't make sense to say, it's nearly impossible for me to get happy, but I will try. That's wrong. There's something severely wrong in your life when you have that challenge. So happiness shouldn't be that of a challenge. So it should be a realistic thing. Otherwise, it's not worth pursuing it.
I like Simon Sinek's take on, and I'm aware of the time. It's almost 5.
Yeah, I need to go soon. Yeah, but next week we will have a regular. We need to find a topic though.
Let's do it now. What would you like to talk about? So I have a few people lined up who are sort of waiting for you to come back out of your cave so that you can have intro calls with them.
Caveman.
Particularly on TDD topics. So we have a few enthusiasts sort of wanting to talk to us about TDD or ATDD.
What's
ATDD? Fresh for you? Acceptance test driven development. It's outside in with smoke.
An interesting topic would be to talk about the difference between very small companies and small companies, and say, is it really necessary to follow all the best practices we hear on LinkedIn, right?
I have coaching clients which would fall into the very small company, like they don't have any employees. Everybody's sort of like a part-time consultant. They have like 10 people on staff, and they're very successful. So I have some stories to share there. I have to anonymize it slightly, but that's a cool topic. What do we call that session? What do we call that topic?
I don't know, but what came to my mind is that there are companies like Theo Brownie, for example, with his T3 stuff. And I forgot his software, actually. He's building a software as well. But he's one of those persons who is against testing, right? And are still successful with what he's doing. And then there are others who say testing is absolute mandatory. If you don't do that, you are doomed.
I mean, to be fair, he is hosting a consumer... This is a very Facebook mentality, what he says.
Yeah.
Right? So he doesn't need to test because he is operating a constantly available consumer-driven service. So he knows immediately if it's not working. Right? So imagine you're operating Twitch.
But many companies are like this.
Yeah.
Most companies I personally know. Even we are like this, right?
I'm not saying Theo is right or wrong. What I am saying is that for Theo to be efficient with his decision, it needs very specific context. Because I know Facebook gets the same, Meta gets the same sort of flack, like the same story about it's a very anti-testing culture. In contrast to, let's say, Google, who have a extremely high testing culture. Meta basically said that, look, we're a consumer product. We have so many canary deploys that everything is constantly being continuously deployed. It's very easy for us to test with real users because we have they have how many? 4 billion customers. If they send out any bugged feature flagged out to like 0.5% of their traffic at any point in time in the day, they can get reliable test data from production, and they don't actually have to simulate that. Right? So at very high levels of consumer-driven traffic that is available 24/7, you can use that as a test bed. You don't have to simulate that.
And both companies are successful, right?
Yes.
And that is that maybe not those companies, but the small companies are interesting. So I think we should shed some light on. You mentioned TDD, and we mention TDD so often, and I think the people who follow our stream know what we think about TDD, which is very similar. But in reality, how does it look like in companies with 3 to 5 people and companies with 10 to 50 people, right?
Yeah.
And what are the contexts when TDD is absolutely necessary and when it's actually not necessary? When it's let's phrase it as testing, not TDD. And that would be an interesting story to talk about, because I meet so many people with so many different opinions, and all of them are actually working and thriving. And this is what I would like to talk about. Actually, the person who is really suffering because of that.
Yeah. Adam Dimitruk, for example, is another person in my network. I also had him on the channel on the Technologies podcast, on the previous iteration of this channel. We spoke about 3.5 hours about event modeling, and he also said, they're doing heavy behavior decomposition with BDD. They are doing small design up front, right? So they're doing small design up front. Everybody meets and sort of shares a mirror diagram, then they go work. Then they come back together, mirror diagram, then they go work, right? So they, instead of having sprint plannings, they architect together, right? So they have this sort of small design upfront ritual. And they don't need to write tests up front because their behavior decomposition is clear enough so that they can write the implementation tested against acceptance criteria, and then write the tests for those acceptance criteria that are annoying to reproduce, annoying to retrace the steps for. And they have a quite regimented sort of atomic unit of delivery, which in event modeling we call slices, which creates a sort of, and they use event sourcing. So the shape of every release, right? So every release contains like a series of packages, a series of changes, and the shape of the changes is very similar, right? So it's input and output, and it's a little bit of side effect management. And because the shapes are the same, they can rely on sort of reusing their testing regimen for a lot of it. So they don't have to TDD that much upfront, even though they are behavior decomposing upfront. They're just not writing down the test before they write down the implementation, because their plan is good enough to actually.
And this is an interesting topic. So
very interesting.
I would like to shed a. Yeah.
Calvin suggested best practices for small companies. I like that topic. Can we make it more specific? It needs a keyword that will sort of make it all.
No, I think that it's not a good title. No. It's a good idea, but it is not the thing we want to talk about. It is a little bit like what is right and what is wrong. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit like who is defining best practice. There is no godlike person who is defining best practices. There are a lot of people who are pro and against, people like Dave Farley and Kent Beck. And what is now the reality? Because it is not like, hey, every company is suffering who's doing that or not, right? Mm-hmm. So I would like to shed exactly the controversial discussion about what actually happens when you're not using those things, and when can it hurt and when not, and some examples about that. Small practices for best companies. That's good.
It's interesting. So recently there was this discussion about founder mode. The Airbnb CEO, whose name escapes me right now, they had this sort of similar stance on a recent, I think, Y Combinator conference, where they said so he contrasted in his talk this idea of founder mode, where the founder of the company has a very unique way of running their own company. Think Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, etc. Right? So those are companies that have like a very, very strategic and tactical involvement from the founders, and they're sort of not replaced with this corporate style, MBA trained, non-engineering management style.
Yes.
Which they called manager mode, right? So he contrasted founder mode versus manager mode, where the founder of the company stays as CEO, stays as CTO, and doesn't get replaced by a bureaucrat, essentially. Which is interesting, which basically touched on this same core idea that most founders of unicorns are given bad advice. They are given common denominator best practices from MBA colleges and MBA graduates that come into the company and basically modularize the company and then just delegate it to shit. Because people are delegating tasks that they don't know how to solve to people who they don't know how to teach how to solve them. So you have this like a giant telephone problem of, let's implement best practice. I don't really understand why, but it will sort of sort itself out as it trickles down the hierarchy to the developers, and it usually doesn't go well. You get this sort of, this is essentially everybody I talk to, they call this sort of that corporatization of our startup. It grows and then it grows further, and in that sort of management
this is a very interesting topic, because many things of what we're talking about is not 100% understanding which context it's actually interesting or not, right? So just to be clear, you can build apps without continuous delivery and without TDD, and they
Let's
will
call
work
it
and
that.
they'll create money,
Let's call it that.
right? What do you mean?
Building, I don't know, building small apps in founder mode.
Okay.
You can call.
So I will come up with that. I would like to host this one if it's okay for you.
Cool.
Because I haven't done something for a while, and I would like to prepare that because it's actually fitting very well into my next content line as well. I really want to talk about those things because I am in founder mode myself.
Yeah,
so
I can tell. I've been in founder mode as well this year, and I've been enjoying it. And it's very difficult to talk about it. And even Kaloyan, thank you. It's Brian Chesky. One of the overarching topics in his essay was that manager mode is very well researched. Founder mode isn't. Founder mode we research by looking up Steve Jobs, and then you
can't research it because founder mode is unique to the DNA of the founder.
Exactly. And then you try to figure it out, but really you get distracted by all the things you don't like because there's a dictator involved. Founder mode usually has like a dictator involved, which comes with a lot of behavioral problems, and then you get distracted by all the negative behavioral problems. I don't want to use their advice because I don't want to become that kind of person, right? So then it becomes really difficult to research because we tell you, hey, Elon is doing founder mode really well. Yeah, but I don't like Elon. Okay, Steve Jobs is doing founder mode really well. Yeah, but he's dead and he was kind of an asshole. I say, okay, well.
Yeah, but so let's don't take, we can talk about this extremely interesting topic because there's another side to it. It is not always this, there is this side that many people actually want to have something like this as employees in this case. So it's not like, oh, that's a dictatorship and everyone hates dictatorships.
No, but like full situational awareness, agility, being able to respond to feedback quickly, pivot if necessary.
You can put it to extreme, but you can have it in a balanced way as well. So let's talk about this as well. Okay, I prepared something for that, but I actually need to go now. I leave you some time to waffle on if you like.
No, I would like to close off because I have my parents over. They're watching the kids, and if possible, I'd like to spend more time with them. This was a very cool episode. Kaloyan, thank you for being with us. I think you're the only one who sort of put up with me starting the stream too late. So sorry about that. And Adrian, thank you so much. And
I will announce tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon, I will announce the topic, and then we can start with invitations again. So we push up the numbers.
Yeah.
And by the way, LinkedIn does now promote video content, just for everyone to know. It's an interesting part who thinks of starting video. It's the best time to start video right now because they will add a TikTok feed into the app. They actually have already, but not for Europeans somehow. But it will come soon. And there's you will read about that. So there's
so Adrian has been doing LinkedIn short videos for the past 3 months now. Weekly.
Short videos, the shorter versions of that.
The shorter versions,
And now they LinkedIn doesn't like it when you make pauses and breaks. But I try to be more consistent right now. And let's take a look. I just wanted to announce that. That's actually an interesting thing. Okay, then I would say goodbye, everyone. Thank you for thanks Kaloyan, thanks Dennis, and see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Adrian.
I hope I don't press the red button.
No, you don't press the red button. I press the red button. Thank you so much, Kaloyan. Thank you for the birthday wishes. We are gonna continue with the channel, right? So I didn't wanna hype up anything regarding canceling the channel or anything. It's just that we're both parents, Adrian and I. We're both entrepreneurs. We're both sort of navigating, changing our business models and adapting to new situations with our clients. So there's usually a lot of, let's say, intensity going in at this part of the year to shift our products somewhat, which requires focus. Which is why we haven't met, which is why we didn't really push too much intensity onto the streams directly. Life happens, and life is beautiful, but it is going well. But as Adrian said, LinkedIn doesn't like if when you take a break. You guys also don't like when we take a break. YouTube doesn't like when we take a break, and Twitch doesn't like when we take a break, and Substack doesn't like when we take a break. So we try not to disrupt your every week consistency with joining us on these waffles, on these conversations. And sometimes that makes it more difficult to experiment with new ideas. So yeah, we're going back to the weekly streams. Wednesday, Content Trucks with Adrian, announcing tomorrow. I'll be interviewing Dave Farley on another channel in 2 weeks on Wednesday. I'm not sure if I will be rebroadcasting that on my channel. Probably not, because I want to keep chat all in one place. But I might post a recording of it if it's appropriate. I'll make sure that I can bring something directly to you guys that has some part of my commentary. There's that. I'll be on StripeCon next week, next Friday. So if you're in Ljubljana, in Vienna, like in Zagreb, like nearby here, and if you want to sort of travel to Slovenia, or if you're gonna fly in, or if you live here, you're very welcome to join me. There are still tickets on sale. There are digital tickets also on sale for the live stream. There will be a production company there to sort of make sure you got audio and video for at least for the main parts of the talks, and hopefully Q&A. So there's that. Plus, I'll be in Bucharest, first week of October, on How to Web. How to Web is one of the larger conferences in Eastern Europe that sort of connects the startup scene, the scale-up scene with the enterprise scene. So every startups, investors, engineering leaders, product leaders, marketers will be there. There will be an engineering track, a product track, a sales track. I'll be presenting about extreme programming, particularly about, maybe I'll make it a little bit more about founder mode, not that it's trending as a topic. But I do want to talk about courage. I do want to talk about sort of maintaining your sort of fearlessness and keeping up level of high psychological safety in product engineering teams. It's only a 20-minute talk, so I'm gonna keep it on point, brief for one idea. Yeah, super happy with how coaching business is going right now. I am scaling to a few more clients, doing a few new things. Yeah, if you want to learn more, there's Crafting Tech Teams links to my content. You find Adrian on his Linktree, notably Snackable CTO. And if you want to reach out to me for coaching or mentoring regarding your continuous delivery practices or whatever is keeping you up at night regarding your engineering team's efficacy, don't hesitate. Even if you just want to have an intro call, just DM me on LinkedIn, set up a call. My Calendly is I'm always available for 45-minute intro calls, like digital coffees. Come and say hi. And yeah, see you next week. Thank you for being with us today. If you're watching the recording, thank you. Like and subscribe the video if you're watching on YouTube. And see you soon. Thank you so much. Ciao.